really great opportunity to both enhance your career as well as join an awesome community. Also, another upcoming webinar around API. If you are new to Marketo's API and want to learn what it is, how to create your first API user and get started, it's a great opportunity to learn more around that. Marketo Engage has an amazing API if you haven't used it yet, or if you've got some use cases that you can't, get done in the application itself. This would be a great webinar to attend. It's a great opportunity to also hear real world use cases of how the REST API can be used. So that'll be another great webinar that's coming up next week. Also, there's an opportunity to share input with the Adobe Adoption and Retention Marketing team. They're conducting research so they can better understand how people are learning to use Marketo Engage, what's working well, what's not working well. So if you've been learning Marketo, whether it's now or in the past, and you've got some insight there that you think would be valuable for the Adobe team, there's a barcode here. You can take a survey or you can schedule an informational interview to talk about your experience. Also, if you are interested in applying for the Champion program, this is a great thing that you could put on your Champion application. Taking that survey or having an interview with Adobe to give them some insight into your experience is a great thing to put on your application. So good opportunity here. Definitely recommend taking advantage of it if there's some great insight you can provide. A lot of upcoming user group meetings in North America and internationally coming up. Quite a lot left in April still, a lot of in-person and virtual meetings. So make sure you're checking out that list. If there's an in-person meeting in your area, it's a great opportunity to meet with other marketers. There's also still a lot of virtual meetings though. So if there's interesting topics, it's a great opportunity to engage. So check that out for sure. A lot of in-person meetings and hybrid meetings internationally as well. So you can check those out and see if there's any that of interest to you. Okay, so now let's get to today's panel. I'm Jenny Robertson. I'm the CTO at Annuitas, and we'll be asking the questions today. I've been in technology for the last 20-ish years, last 14 of that in the sales and marketing side of things. Last 10 years of that has been agency side with Annuitas. I just hit my 10. I have no Rolex yet, although I'm going to keep asking. I'm also a 10-time champ and lead the Atlanta Marketo user group. But enough about me. I'm just asking questions today. Let's get to our panel. I am so excited about this panel. We have some very talented and amazing people, some really great expertise that are going to be able to take really good care of all the questions today. So let's go. We'll go left to right, top to left, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. And let's add in a fun question. Maybe after you give us a little bit of information, tell us what's your most and least favorite food. So Max, let's start with you.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm Max Morier. I'm the VP of Demand Generation, Marketing Ops and Analytics at Trellix. Also have a few other teams on my roster now, partner marketing, web marketing, a few other things, which has been really interesting to get to learn more about. Been at Trellix for about a year, spent the last decade in marketing. Foundation is in marketing operations, multiple time Marketo champion certified, but have kind of grown into this demand generation role, which is really interesting. In terms of food, favorite food, definitely pizza. Eat that anywhere, anytime, all day, all the time. Doesn't matter. Costco, fancy pizza, whatever it is, I'll eat it. Least favorite food? It's a good question. I think I would just avoid just like a mushroom by itself. Like on other stuff, great. By itself, no, pass. So that's me. I'll hand it off to Beth.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm Beth Masura. I'm a senior marketing operations consultant with Atumo. So we're an agency that focuses on marketing operations and marketing technology. I've been working with Marketo for about 10 years now. And my favorite food is falafel. Least favorite, probably walnuts. But I will hand it off to John.
Thanks, Beth. Hi, John here. Like Beth, also about 10 years using Marketo. Now I work at Accenture, mostly focusing on helping customers implement tools from the Adobe Experience Cloud, but my background and yeah, kind of first love is still with Marketo from there. On the food side, that's a hard one. I'm with Max also on the mushroom thing. Not a fan of that, but I would have to say meat is my most hated one. Most loved is super hard. I think anything that's like a rice dish I'm for. So, and Josh, over to you.
I'm Josh Harrington. I'm partner and chief marketing technology officer at Captural. We're a purely Marketo agency. I've been working with Marketo for 12 years now, maybe a little more. This is my first year being a champion. And on the food side, favorite is probably sushi, and then least favorite is anything with beets. I can't do it.
All right, thanks, guys. Okay, so let's dig into our questions. First, we've got some career-related questions we'll go through. First question is how to enhance career path with Marketo. Maybe Max,
go ahead and take that one. Yeah, a lot of opinions on this. I think Marketo, you can go so many different ways with it. I think there are three primary tracks that stick out to me. There's and two of them stem from the same place, which is getting very technically educated about the platform, knowing all the nuts and bolts of how Marketo works, how it integrates, can kind of lead you to either being an in-house expert at a company or toward consultancy, both of which are awesome. Then there's this other branch of starting there or adding that to your arsenal, but then either growing into a role that encompasses more of the marketing function or already existing in that part of the marketing function and then adding Marketo to your tool belt. So it depends on whether you want to stick with Marketo as like your sole responsibility and focus, in which case you can become an in-house expert or consultant and start to learn more about other technologies. Or if you are dead set on wanting to be able to make more decisions about other parts of the marketing organization. And from my personal experience and my perspective, marketing operations people, whether it's Marketo or other platforms, biased here, but Marketo can be a fantastic foundation for growth into overall marketing leadership. The awareness of data management, of campaign structure, natural awareness of CRM structures, whether it's Dynamics or Salesforce, or if you're using HubSpot, the same tool for both. That awareness of CRM and sales process can be critically helpful as you grow into more of an overall marketing ownership role. But that foundation in Marketo and automation and understanding data management and system integrations is, I think, so much more helpful than starting from a place of, something like field marketing or web marketing and not knowing how any of that stuff works and then trying to figure it out later. So I've seen a lot of marketing operations folks start to grow into that kind of management role. And everywhere I look, I see it be more effective than when I see it work the other direction, where it's, folks with the traditional demand generation background having to learn how integrations, systems, and technologies work. It seems a lot easier for operations people to grow into that other role. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that organizations are now expecting a lot more diligence about what adds value, not just meeting some sort of end goal. They really want to understand where their money goes, what the output of that is, and our foundations in marketing operations and Marketo really help us understand how to track that and how to set up our sales teams and our marketing teams for success in that way. So that's my 2 cents on there.
I think that was well put. Well put. I think we hit some really good points there. Where should I start if I want to shift from being a marketing automation specialist to a consultant? Maybe Beth, that's a good one for you. Yeah.
Sure. So I think Max touched on a couple of the elements around understanding marketing, understanding data, understanding business. I think that when you are moving into a consultant role, you end up being faced with a lot of new situations, new problems, a lot of unknowns. You might not know the business quite as well. So one of the key skills that you'll want to develop is knowing how to ask the right questions to really understand what a situation is or what the team's goals are, so you're solving for the right problem. And also, because there's a lot of stuff that you're not going to have seen before, being a little uncomfortable, or I guess I should say, being comfortable with the uncertainties and being able to kind of wing it in terms of like figuring it out as you go, not being scared about the unknowns or worried that, you know, well, I haven't done this before, so how can I possibly do it? You always find yourself in that kind of situation, but you learn a lot along the way. And I think that's one of the big benefits of being a consultant is you get exposed to so many new problems that you can solve and perhaps help other people solve similar problems in the future.
And Beth, how did you take that leap to become a consultant?
For me, I had worked in-house for a long time, but I kind of enjoyed being a generalist. So again, kind of having exposure to a lot of different things or having a lot of different tools in my tool belt that I could leverage. Being a consultant is a good path for that, just because you have a lot more variety and opportunities. For me, I just applied. You have to get some experience in-house, I think, just because you need to understand just generally how the systems work or what kinds of business problems you're solving. But once you feel comfortable enough with the processes and some of the tools, like anyone could be a consultant. Just make sure you know how to ask the right questions.
Yeah,
There,
great.
Adding on to what Beth said, I think if you put yourself in a position of, I'm going to solve problems, and if someone has a problem, I'm going to figure out how to solve it. And as Beth said, like get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to learn things to solve this problem. If you're on in-house, you'll quickly build those skills and the correct skills, because as long as you're solving someone's problem, you're learning an important skill.
And a question that came in from Ashley, what is the benefit to being a consultant versus in-house?
So for me, like I said, having the chance to work on a variety of different situations or different technology stacks or different types of industries. If you're in-house, you're kind of in that particular business. So you get a lot more exposure as a consultant. On the flip side, some folks would say, well, if you're a consultant, then you're constantly having to change gears and things move very fast. You don't necessarily get the longevity that you might in-house, where you can really see a lot of different projects kind of building upon each other in one place. Kind of depends on the specific situation with what kinds of projects the agency would take on, or as a consultant you take on. But those are a couple of the things that I've heard or thought about myself.
Yeah, I did a similar change as well. I think maybe coming close to 3 years ago, but I found working in a company, you had a lot more kind of influence or control and also decision making, doing things or strategy or advising, that you had a lot deeper understanding of business. I think as consulting, you build that over time. But as Beth was saying, you if you work with different companies, the different industries, there's a lot of nuance that you understand at a top level, but maybe not as deep as within the company. But then the other side is that often things move a bit slower. So you're still working your way through, but the rate of problem solving or the rate of different experiences doesn't come as fast when you're in the company, because you're moving with the same pace as the whole company in that way.
Yeah. And one more question came in. What are the challenges for a marketing consultant in terms of B2C and B2B? I know from my end, B2C needs, especially with Marketo Engage being positioned as a B2B product, that's, I would say, a challenge sometimes to get companies to understand why Marketo Engage may still be the right products for them when it comes to the marketing automation.
Yeah, I think from the B2B side, it's also, if we're still talking about also being consultant in this point of view, that relationship that you build with sales teams as well, you can always talk about it and you can say advise, you understand, I think Max was saying this before, a lot of the foundations, and from that way that Marketo works about the lead funnels and different content needs for different stages, and you can work with all of that. But then when it gets to the strong relationship that you need to work with the sales team to get those insights, again, you can always advise and recommend these things, but you're not the owner of that relationship often in the case. So it's you've got to kind of work through other people to help get the success. And I find where you have that you need that strong partnership in the B2B context, it can also be a bit harder to own it if you're not in the company and not the relationship holder.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Last career question before we'll move on. How to be a Marketo champ?
Yeah, I think you already touched on this one a little bit on the intro, Jenny, but yeah, there is an application process that's coming up. There will be a webinar that's also going to be, I think, in a few weeks, if not a few days, that will deep dive into this about the whole application process, what's involved, how to make your application stand out. But basically, there are a few key parts that are looking at it. One is deep knowledge of Marketo to be able to come to the events like this, talk, be an advocate of the platform, help the wider community, whether that be in the online forum, whether it be attending and speaking at like either in-person user groups or virtual user groups like this, are all kind of things that will help build a case of what makes a good champion. Yeah, also participation in and a bit of a passion for the project. So one of the parts that I think we all quite enjoy of being a champion is the close collaboration with the product team. So they will talk to us about roadmaps, ideas, features. We can have feedback on there. So having a willingness to kind of, yeah, help the product grow and see the future of Marketo evolve and give your inputs and needs and give feedback are all key parts of it. But I'll put in chat the link again to the upcoming webinar. I think that will be the best place to go. The program managers from Adobe that run the whole program will be talking about what they look for in a champion, what they look for in an application. So yeah, I would encourage or hand over to that webinar for more information.
Great. Thanks. All right, we'll move on to Adobe Summit. So we're fresh off Adobe Summit. We've got a couple Adobe Summit questions we'll go through quickly. And then if you are attending and you have insight too from if you've attended Adobe Summit, definitely put in the chat your thoughts as well. But the first Summit question is, in your opinion, what new Marketo release or update announced at Summit was the most relevant and why? And Josh, I know you attended. Maybe you want to.
Yeah. I was there. I think if anyone was there, or if you've seen the sessions, you know, the overall theme is AI is being interwoven into everything. So a lot of those AI features coming out, the Gen Studio, Firefly, and all of that. But I think the ones that stuck out to me, a lot of them are coming out in H2 this year. But the new email editor, if you've been with Marketo for a while, the new email editor is exciting because it's been something people have been waiting for. The meeting schedule on landing pages, being able to schedule a meeting directly from landing pages, that's really exciting. I know we were part of the beta for the on-demand or the webinars, which if you haven't used them are fantastic. So that's still in beta for some people, but live for some people. Then on top of that, they announced the on-demand webinar AI experience. So it's the summaries for your webinars. It splits it into chapters for you. It creates a FAQ just from AI. So I'm really excited to see those features when they come out. And then the big one that everyone's also talking about is Adobe Journey Optimizer B2B. So seeing that Journey Optimizer from the B2B side, being able to work with that, it will be very exciting. And I'll put a link in the chat as well. There's a program where you can sign up for all of these things to be part of the beta program, because I know waiting is difficult. You want to get your hands on them, so I'll put that link in the chat.
Great. And then we're gonna get to AI next, but before we do, real quickly, what were the best sessions at Summit I may have missed?
Oof. I'm biased here, but I would say the champions sessions were the best. We had some amazing sessions from the champions, especially around AI. Like I said, so many of the sessions were around AI. Jenny, you and Corey's session and the skill exchange was fantastic. I did a session on AI and I attended all of them, and I was still like, I thought I had dug in as deep as I could, and I was still taking notes furiously from all the sessions. There was Charlie and Isabel's how to leverage generative AI to elevate marketing ops. Tyrone and Lucas did a deep dive into using generative AI as well as getting into the weeds with Python scripts and all of that. So really hands-on. Some fantastic sessions. And the one I would start with, though, if you haven't seen any of them, is start with the roadmap session, because that was great to see all the things that are coming from Adobe's side.
Yeah, not to be biased, I have to say I agree. I went to a lot of non-champion and non-Marketo sessions, and I definitely personally felt like the champion sessions were really good, but there was a really great CDP session I went to that was not a champion session that was also really good. There's 2 CDP sessions though, and I can't remember the name of this one, but there was a good CDP session out there. If you're interested in CDP, guys, I'd definitely recommend checking that out too.
That's one of the features that I didn't mention in the previous question, but the real-time CDP enhancements that are coming out, those are exciting as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to use them. Okay.
And Jenny, the session with CDP plus Marketo? What was that?
Yes, there was one that was
Nice.
a Marketo client that used CDP.
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely need to find that one. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll follow up. I'll have to go on and get a link for it. Okay. Let's move on to AI. We mentioned AI already, and we've got an AI question in the Q&A. So what is the impact of AI in marketing automation?
I'd like to give my 2 cents on AI, because I think, I wasn't able to attend the summit, but obviously being part of the CHAMP program, you have some advanced visibility. Again, a really good reason to apply if you're interested. I'm very skeptical of AI. I've been watching very closely, and I need to go watch a lot of the sessions from Summit. I'm excited about what Adobe is planning to release, but I'm also very cognizant as a team manager of how much time it will take my teams to actually stand up and manage AI programs, and whether that defeats the purpose. And so I'm watching very closely to make sure that if there's an opportunity to leverage AI, whether it's in automation or marketing generally, that it saves time, doesn't take more time. And I really still have yet to see that happen for us in our space. I think the best examples that we've seen of actually adding value are to creative and content teams. Obviously, we see, image generation, we see content creation through generative AI. But when it comes to AI in process, for us, it still seems to require an immense amount of front end management in order to get it to work. And so I'm eagerly awaiting when platforms start to release things that actually take less time to execute more. And so I'm skeptical at this stage. I'm also always skeptical of Adobe's announcement schedule. I've gone through, all of us have been doing this for a decade at least. I've seen so many releases. I'm waiting with bated breath, and I've got my fingers crossed that everything pans out the way it's supposed to, but I really want to see it in person for myself before getting too amped up about it. And so for now, I haven't really seen a great automation or non-content focused AI use case for us right now. So that's where we're at. Maybe I'm the skeptic in the room. I just want to see it take less time.
That actually digs into two questions that were asked. One was, AI influence will it impact human capacity in marketing automation? And another that just came in is, will it replace human effort or completely overtake human intervention? And based on what you said, the answer is probably not. At least not right
Not yet. I think I think there will be, I think it will absolutely support automation needs at some point. And I think that, you know, I don't want to pretend like I'm like the AI guru because I just listen to podcasts and the news and everything. But like, I think our goal, just like it has been, I mean, our whole role is automation. So it's like, how do we do this without as much human manual work? That's our whole thing. So it shouldn't be scary to us as automation people to try to find ways to become more efficient with new technology. That's like our whole job. So it's not something I'm scared of. It's not something I'm scared of for my automation teams. I think it's something that's going to make our lives easier. And then it's up to us as managers to figure out how to make sure that we don't just compensate for that by overworking everyone long term. So, you know, I do think it will absolutely start to consume some of our what we consider normal day-to-day work right now. But I think that's a good thing, and it'll help us focus on, you know, maybe more strategic elements of our marketing programs instead of just, you know, how many smart lists and, you know, smart campaigns do we need to set up today?
Yeah, agreed. Great. What's the best use case for AI you've seen so far?
I'll pass it on to someone else if they want to answer. The best use cases I've seen are non-automation or non-operations focused. They're content and creative. So Adobe Firefly was lucky enough to be part of the beta for that. I loved it. My company is in a beta with some of Google stuff right now, which is really interesting as well. So, you know, there's a lot of companies working on generative, whether it's graphical or text, but you know, the graphics is really interesting to me, and I think can help our marketing, not automation, but marketing overall, become a lot more interesting and give teams with less capacity the ability to produce really good looking marketing content.
I think for use cases within Marketo, getting the content creation for generative AI has been incredible. What people are doing with Firefly outside of the system and bringing it in, and of course Adobe is incorporating that. But being on the operations side, like seeing the data flows and things that people have been able to do with that, taking a lead activity and having AI summarize it to send one snippet, one paragraph to a salesperson so they understand all of this activity that's happened. That's probably one of my favorites. Having AI write out the like prospecting emails, having it doing lead qualification from the mop side, that's what excites me. Those have been the coolest ones I've seen.
I think it was
maybe. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, I think it's one of your use cases, Josh, that you presented for. But the translation of something like a job title into job functions that your company may work with, I think is also an amazing one, because it's so hard to synthesize that into something that is clear on what type of communication will resonate best with this person and their role in decision making or their focus in the company. Yeah, it's more from an operations side to help with data quality, and then personalization on top of that. I think that's quite an impactful one.
And the big thing is like creating those loops, like Max said, it's when you can save time, it shouldn't be taking more time. So something like that is like segmenting all of the job titles into job segments, instead of having someone manually go through each one and say, oh, which segment does this fit in, or how do I format this data so it'll fall into my segmentation. Just have an AI do that, and creating a loop where I don't have to babysit it. I just hit the button and it runs. So it saves time. That's really some great ones.
For me, I'm most interested in exploring predictive models. So similar to what you just said, Josh, about not having to manually sort things or make decisions, but I know RTCDP has some predictive models built in around, say, conversions or likelihood to do XYZ. And I think that that's something that is very difficult for humans to compute on their own. So I see that as a really good opportunity. Right now, though, it is either in RTCDP or maybe using some of the flows that you presented, Josh. You could send it to some outside model. But I'm hopeful that there will be more opportunities to be able to directly reach that within Marketo a little more easily.
Yeah, I think Charlie Oakham had a great session on where he was using it for lead qualification, like lead scoring, where he basically creating a rubric for how to score a lead and then sending all the lead data and having an AI model sit down there with the activity, with all the demographic and firmographic information, and giving it a score and a quality and a summary. Instead of a single person going through that. Like, how much time can you save for your sales team, for your your marketing and sales teams?
Adding that to my list of things to watch as well.
Yeah, just watch all of them.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah. So you guys touched the next two questions around AI, you kind of already touched. So I'm going to throw these questions out there. Let me know if you have anything else to add. But one was how to leverage Gen AI with Marketo. And the other is, can you share some use case scenarios, how to enhance Marketo's processes with AI tools other than content creation? So I know some of you are actually doing this today. Maybe you can touch on that a little.
Sure. Outside of content creation, like I said, that's where I'm excited about. The content creation is great, but that's not really where my day-to-day is. So the data categorization segmentation that we already mentioned, so getting job titles into job segments, getting states or cities into region segmentation, things like that, the AI can do very easily and quickly. Analysis. So if you give it information coming in from a lead form, can you identify this as spam or not? That just as a quick filter. Lead scoring and qualification, as we mentioned before. It can go through a large amount of data, all the activity history and demographic information, behavioral information, and come up with a lead score very quickly. One of the ones, best send time. So if you send it all of the email sends, opens, and clicks for a lead over a period of time, it can tell you when is the best time to send an email, what is the best day of the week to send an email, so that you can really optimize for on the individual person level, what time and when you reach out to that person. That's a lot of data for one person to go through, but the AI can do it at scale. And then kind of where content meets operations is like hyper personalization. So if you have right now, obviously we use tokens and things in emails, but now you can use tokens along with maybe a template and pass that to the AI and say, hey, hyper personalize this for this person's case, right? So you can do a prospecting email where you can give all the information about the person and their company and basically a template for how you want to prospect them. Have it combine that into a really like fine-tunes prospecting email specific to that person. Or if you had a confirmation for a hotel or something, you can really personalize it for that person's booking and time of year, all of those things. And then summarization, the use case that I mentioned, where you take all of the activity information about a person and pass that to sales as a note. I know we have a lot of like complex naming conventions and stuff, which if you try to send that as a list to sales, they're not going to understand like what it all means. But if you explain that to the AI and then you give that naming conventions, which campaigns someone's been part of, which interesting moments they've had, it can really fine tune it so it's just a quick couple sentences like you would send to a salesperson, like, hey, reach out to this person because that can save a lot of time and really improve that relationship and that handoff between sales and marketing.
Awesome. And one last AI question, and we'll move on. This came in the Q&A. Any overview for Gen Studio, please? If anybody wants to give any details around Gen Studio and what was shown there. And I can add a link in the chat with a general overview from Adobe, but does anybody want to touch on that quickly?
See, it looked really cool. It looked like you can come up with some really interesting workflows as far as creating things without getting your hands on it. I don't have, other than I'm excited
Yeah.
to use it.
No, I'd say it's a lot more, as I understand it, from the content generation, content kind of initiation side that you can scale and leverage then Gen AI to be able to develop different permeations of an asset or develop it in such a way that gets there. I know a lot of one of the big challenges we face with Marketo is all that pre-content bit. We have all the ideas for the campaigns, but then creating it for all the products and all the different customer types and things like that. So I think this is where that will add a lot of value in the supporting work that sits around what we would do for Marketo.
One thing that's a Gen Studio related is the new email editor is supposed to integrate with that. We'll see when it comes out, but hopefully you can create these assets very quickly and immediately have them accessible to you in the email editor. That's my hope. That was kind of the promise. We'll see when it comes out and how it actually looks.
Right. All right, we'll move on from AI. We'll go through a couple of best practices questions that came in. What are your best practices to create new campaigns on Marketo? Maybe Beth will have
here. Yeah, so I'd say the biggest tip I'd have would be program templates. So that's basically a shell program, a generalized program that you make for each type of marketing initiative that you might have. So for example, webinar, you already know what kinds of assets you need for emails and landing page and different smart campaigns to process program status, registration, etc. So every time you build a webinar, instead of having to add those one by one, instead you have this clonable program template that you just right click, clone, and it makes a copy. That way you don't have to rebuild it all from scratch. You might be able to use program tokens to further make it simpler and say, well, just swap out the title and the date and whatever else, the details about the speakers, then you're all done. So I'll add a link to there's a number of resources on the community, but I just found one that I thought would be a good place to start. So definitely, if you are not using program templates yet, give it a try for some of the most common types of programs that you build. Just reduces the amount of effort to build things one by one, reduces the chance of error because you have a lot of the pieces already preset. You're just maybe swapping out one thing. So definitely recommend that.
Great. And then another one on smart list best practices. Does it matter the order of filters? Should they go largest number of people to smallest, etc.?
I'll hop in there as well. So I would say, yes, the order does matter. Basically, you want to reduce the number of people at first, like the most that you can reduce the list out of your entire database, because it's going to kind of assess each filter one by one. Now, when you have advanced logic, maybe it gets a bit more complicated. But let's say you're going to have two filters. One of them, half your database qualifies for. The other one, only 1,000 people qualify for. And assuming you have a larger database. You want to do the filter that only 1,000 people qualify for, because then the next filter, it's only going to assess those 1,000 people to see if they meet that filter instead of the other 50% of your database. So that's definitely one tip. There is a lot around which operator you use. So is or is not, contains. Is always the most efficient where possible, but there's certainly use cases where you need to use is not or contains, etc. There's actually a really great documentation page that talks about some of these best practices and guidance. But wanted to give a couple examples of some ways to make it most efficient. The last thing I'd say is be careful about nesting smart lists. So if in your smart list you say, oh, are they a member of this other smart list? And then you go to that smart list and you go see, oh, that's looking to see if they're a member of this other smart list. That takes a lot of processing And it makes it really hard to troubleshoot when something's not working as expected, right? Because you have to keep digging, and in your brain thinking, oh, how do all these filters roll up together? So I'd definitely be cautious about that. There might be use cases for it, but where possible, try to keep it pretty simple so that each of your smart lists is pretty easy to interpret and also less processing that it has to keep doing.
And I think similar logic to keep for your flow steps, particularly if you have like a send email and a choice step in each, and maybe you're going by language, something like that, job function. Because as you know, if it meets the first, or as soon as it meets a step or a choice in a flow step, if it qualifies, it will move on to the next flow step. So you want to get the big group up top first. So then they're assessed in maybe the first 1 or 2 choices, and then the small long tail is processed through multiple choices. So similar idea, keeping it there.
Wonderful. And Chris points out in the chat too, watch out for the contains. That one consumes a lot of processing as well. 100%. Yep. Okay. We've got a couple of questions that have come in via the Q&A. Will there be any further updates, automation, and nurture program in upcoming releases we can expect? And I think the answer is no. I have not seen any, but leave it to you guys. Maybe you've seen something I haven't.
No, I've not heard anything either, but I'm very curious what enhancements I'd like to see. But yeah.
So another thing that I'd plug, I don't have any examples either, but there are these roadmap webinars that you can sign up for if you join the Adobe feedback program. Those are coming up, I think, starting next week. So I'll try to find the links and share that. But that is a way to get the sneak peek for a lot of features that may be planned for the next quarter, half a year or so. So that would be a really great way to see what's coming up if it wasn't something that was previously shared at Summit.
Yeah, really good call out. If you're not part of the feedback program, it's a really great way to get that insight. Yeah. Okay. And one more question that came in Q&A. How can we manage dedupe, which is really tough? I think we all struggle with this one. Chris Willis says pray. That's a pretty good answer. Is anybody on the panel have ways you're managing dedupe today?
There's not an automatic solution to dedupe. I think everyone wants a silver bullet for this. It currently doesn't exist. I bet if you talk to someone like Corey Bayless in our community, he'll give you some sort of code to write that may help you do it. But I think you either need to take the time to go through manually, set criteria, priorities for, choosing what data components from which duplicate leads you want to use over another, like that incredibly manual work, or accept some data loss. Like you may just decide, hey, I need to reset and maintain data from after a certain time. So I'm going to remove any duplicate records from before a certain time because I don't really care about that old data and I want to prioritize more recent information. That might be a starting point, but I haven't seen an easy dedupe tool. Marketo will show you possible duplicates. There are plenty of tools that will show you the matches and show you your duplicate leads, but won't just do that for you because they want you to have to make that hard decision about what data to keep or retain.
But I think definitely.
I think Jenny, you and Corey had this part of your session was on dedupes. It was really good. And then we had a conversation, I think, after your session, because we kind of dug in even deeper, was we're using AI. This is another, to Max's point, I think it's custom to every situation. You have to kind of assess your situation, the best tool and best methods. And then, like Chris said, then pray. But when we talked, Jenny, it was about taking the leads out of Marketo with the API or through flow steps or webhooks, and then using AI to match that data. So you create a merged record base with AI. So let AI look at the 3-4 duplicates that you have, merge those fields down intelligently, create that lead, and then merge everything into that lead. But that's using the API to do that process.
Yeah.
But I think
And I can't say if
ideally,
you, oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, ideally a better way is to turn the tap off, find out where the duplicate's coming from. Maybe it's CRM, that's always
Absolutely.
one of them. But if it is, you find out there's a business process where people go to a trade show, then they just import all the attendees into CRM, and then that'll all just flow into Marketo, and you may end up with even duplicates that way. And finding out these processes where you can kind of turn the tap off and creating new duplicates is maybe a starting point, and then also working out how you can fix what you've got, but hopefully over time you have less to fix.
Agreed. And yeah, if you're interested in merging via API, Corey and I are going to come out with a blog post to summarize our session on things you need to watch out when merging, and how Corey's going to write up how you can merge via API. So that blog hopefully will be posted in the next month on the community. There's also a lot of great tools, demand tools. If you have budget, is amazing, right? Ringlead's amazing. I think Rosidi has a cheaper option for a dedupe tool, but lots of tools out there. Okay, guys, we have 10 minutes left. If you submitted a question and we haven't asked it yet and you really want to answer, post it in the Q&A or chat. I'll make sure we get to it. We'll continue going down the list, but if you have any burning questions, definitely put them in there. We want to get all your questions answered today. So next on the list is around email best practices. Can anyone speak to email best practices?
Sure. So again, there isn't like a single silver bullet for the best email possible. But the best practice is to test and test and test and keep testing and never stop testing. Email is, from what I've seen, still the most direct and effective way to get people to engage with content, especially at the cost. When you compare it to digital, like, what we pay for our Marketo subscription, obviously we factor in where all of these people come from and that cost, but it's still an incredibly cost-effective way to generate a lot of engagement. It warrants a lot of your time. I see a lot of marketing leaders and C-levels want to gloss over email and focus on other tactics as a higher priority because it's sexier than email at this point. But email is still an incredibly effective engagement tactic, and you should take and set aside a lot of time for email testing and structure. Spend a lot of time on subject lines. If people don't open your emails, they're not going to engage with your emails. Spend a lot of time on audience optimization. If people have never opened your emails, they're probably not going to open your emails. And so it's not necessarily worth either maintaining them in your system or continuing to try and generate engagement from that person, especially if it's an old record. But testing subject lines, testing content, using the content tools available. I'm a skeptic about the current state of AI, but even Marketo's basic functionality around tokenization and, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name, but dynamic content can actually help your email performance dramatically. And those are not AI; those require human decisions, but they make a big difference. So set up an actual A/B testing structure. There's a lot of great content there. I know that she hasn't presented on it in a while, but Jessica Cow has done some great sessions on A/B testing structures and concepts. I recommend going out and looking at those sessions from past summits or separate webinars there. So that's my 2 cents. Test. Make sure people open your email first, and make sure you're not sending content to folks who have never engaged and probably won't engage.
All right. We could dive in more, but another question came in chat. I want to make sure we get answered. Sam's company is looking at Marketo measure implementation. Any gotchas to be aware of?
Yeah, I'll take this one too. I would just be, it's going to take a lot of time. It is not a turn it on and it's providing you insights sort of platform. Make sure, I'm assuming if you're at the point where you are going to implement, or if you've made a purchase decision, that more than just the marketing team is aligned on what this what the insights of this tool are going to help you do as an organization. I see a lot of instances where marketing teams operate in a silo. They go out and buy a multi-touch platform like Marketo Measure. They spend 9 months setting it up and getting it to work. And then they start taking insights up the chain and realize that people don't care and that there's some other methodology that the company's actually going to employ to measure marketing success or failure that does not align to Marketo Measure. So I would make sure that conceptually the orgs that are responsible for dictating marketing success or failure, if it's outside the marketing team, which it typically is, whether it's sales or finance or some other team, is bought into the concept of multi-touch attribution, either as a replacement or a supplementary concept to whatever attribution methodology is already in place before spending, quarters of time implementing the platform. It's not the most complex multi-touch platform, and it is part of the Adobe space, which is great, but it's not easy.
I've also been looking into it, something we've been exploring to implement, and I've been trying to, hopefully I can create a blog future when I finish my list, but just of a preparedness, like what do you need to have running in your Marketo to be ready, and from a CRM point of view. And one of these things that came up is I think there's so much dependent on your CRM practices as well, that you're tagging contacts to opportunities to make sure that that's there. Otherwise, you have to attribute all touch points across a whole company to that opportunity where it may have only been a buying group of a handful of people. So there's, I think, operationally a lot outside of the scope of maybe a Marketo admin or a MOPS team that will determine the success of using Marketo Measure as well. I think something to keep in mind that it's not only a marketing thing.
And if you do, if you are in a position where you're like, okay, well, I know that we're not great about contact opportunity hygiene, so we're going to look at account level multi-touch influence. If you have duplicate accounts, again, it kind of blows up your measurement. So that CRM hygiene is critical. And the other component is it's just like any other platform, as we know with Marketo, it's not a one-time setup. It requires constant maintenance forever. So making sure that you have 15% of your day chalked out or your team's time available, or some dedicated resource supporting Marketo Measure, because if the point is to be the source of truth for how marketing is measured and whether success or failure or budgets are determined, it should have dedicated resourcing and dedicated time chalked out for it. It's that important. So making sure that the leadership team recognizes that this is a long-term investment of time, not a one and done setup.
Yeah, and Sam just put in chat, I keep telling everyone it's only as good as the data in our systems, but I fear they think it's going to solve all our problems. It won't. That's a common thing, I think, in general with technology. People buy a technology thinking it's going to solve their problems, and technology isn't always the answer, right? Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question. Is there an automated way to mark assets, be marked as expired after a certain period of time?
Yes, there is. It came out within the last couple of years. It's called local asset expiration. And basically, it allows you to set a date when an asset will either be archived or a smart campaign will be turned off. So here's a link to the documentation about that. So one use case for that is rather than wait for that automated quarterly inactive trigger campaign cleanup that will make sure that any campaign that hasn't had anyone run through in the last 6 months, it'll just deactivate it. To reduce the clutter of what active triggers you have in your database or in your Marketo instance, which is good for performance, you can plan on, if I've got a webinar, for example, and I know that registrations need to end that day because afterwards it doesn't matter anymore, you can deactivate that associated campaign. So no longer listening for people to fill out the registration form or whatever, that's just one example. So I highly recommend setting that up as part of your program process to make sure that as appropriate, you have expiration dates set up for the various campaigns. That way, you don't have to go back and deactivate a bunch of campaigns later or wait for the cleanup. It really keeps your instance running smoothly, and it also makes it cleaner if you need to go see what is active. It's only going to be stuff that you really want.
Great. Well, I think we're at time, but if you did not get any questions answered, or you have other questions that pop up due to the conversation today, everyone here is on LinkedIn. We are all more than happy to help if you have questions or, want to chat. So definitely reach out if you need any other assistance. And thanks for attending today. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.